Welcome to this meeting of FIAC. There are no fire drills planned. If the fire alarm is activated, which is a continuous siren with a flashing red light, please leave the building immediately following the fire exit signs. Let's get underway. First, apologies for absence and substitutions.
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies for absence from Councillor Clayton. He's been substituted by Councillor Granville. We've received apologies for Councillor Penny Cole, who's been substituted by Councillor White. Apologies from Councillor Manston, who's been substituted by Councillor Madam Perry. Apologies from Councillor Scott, who's been substituted by Councillor Horwood, and Councillor Slander has given apologies and he's been substituted by Councillor Streckfield.
Good heavens, that's an awful lot of substitutions. And welcome to all the other councillors who are in attendance today. Item 1, minutes. To agree the minutes of the meeting of the committee held on the 6th of January and the special FIAC meeting on the 3rd of February as a correct record. You've all seen those. Any questions or comments? All those in favour of approving the minutes? The minutes are duly approved. Let me sign them.
Yes, Councillor Grant mentioned
Yes.
both. What's the minutes? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members of the committee wish to declare any interest in relation to items on the agenda this evening? And I will ask the same thing of anybody else who wishes to participate in the meeting. Yes, Councillor Shea.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm going to participate or not, but I'm watching with interest. In case I do, my members' interests record that I'm a town councillor and a member of the trustees of the Stag.
Thank you. Councillor Purves.
Oh, so sorry. Try again. I'm speaking on behalf of the Hollywood Residents Association in a minute.
Thank you. Councillor Granville.
Thank you, Chair. I'm also a member of the Town Council and I'm the ward member for this area. When we get to talking,
Which town council?
Sevenoaks Town Council, sorry, Sevenoaks Town Council. So some of the community assets that we'll be discussing are within Sevenoaks Council remit.
Thank you. Anybody else? Right, let's get underway then with item 3, actions from previous meeting, if any.
It's just one, Chairman. That was responded to by email back in January.
Okay, fine. Everybody happy with that? Yes, good. Item 4, update from the portfolio holder, Councillor Maskell.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to be brief, bearing in mind the time that it is. I've just got two issues to put to the committee. First of all, the issue around the Stag Theatre and the FAQs that we've developed at the end of last week. I'm pleased to see that these FAQs are now in front of you this evening, which will be very helpful. We worked on that in order to sort of cover any misunderstanding that came to the fore recently. I'm sure many of you here are very aware of that. We put a lot of work into that, and I'm very grateful to officers for clearing many of the issues up in the course of the week. And I urge members to look carefully at those in relation to item 9 on the agenda tonight. Secondly, I just want to say that there are a number of staff changes that will be forced upon the finance team as we're going forward. These changes will demonstrate the importance of ensuring continuity and resilience going forward. As a result, there will be a report coming soon that will explore workforce retention and management structures going forward. I think it's important to highlight as we move towards local government reform and we move over the next year or two, these are very important matters in order to ensure the continuing service level that we expect within this authority. So I think it's important. I think we look forward to seeing that document, and I hope members will appreciate some of the difficulties that we may well face going forward. Thank you, Chair. That's as far as I will go on that, unless there are any questions around that.
Any questions? Doesn't look like it. Let's move on swiftly, because we've got a lot to get through. Item 5, referral from Cabinet or Audit Committee, if any.
None, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 6, financial monitoring, 25-26 to the end of January 26. And yes, I think you're going to take us through this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This report is the financial monitoring to the end of January 2026 and shows the forecast position to the end of March 2026, which is an unfavourable variance of £188,000. This compares to a forecast of an adverse forecast of £197,000 in November. Following discussions at previous FIAC meetings, some additional analysis and commentary has been added to the report relating to vacancies and offsetting agency costs. Details of the main variances are set out in the report. Finance officers have continued working with budget holders and SMT to reduce the variance. Due to the rescheduling of this meeting, I am now able to give a verbal update to say that at the financial monitoring to the end of February showed a further improvement to £108,000. In addition, Councillor Morgan circulated a question in advance of the meeting where he asked me to address the current kind of turmoil globally. So just to read that out in case anybody hasn't seen it. A number of current and planned developments require funding by borrowing or rely on maintenance and growth of existing revenues. In light of the current market turmoil and the impact on borrowing costs plus increased cost of living for residents, e.g. petrol prices, please could you provide a short view on the potential impact of this turmoil on SDC's finances going forward when presenting the financial monitoring at FIAC? So I'd like to make a few points. So the first thing is, as always, when there's a financial shock, it's a case of don't panic. Our current borrowing is at fixed rates and it is delivering income in excess of that borrowing. All schemes are reviewed at key stages to see if they're still viable, and we aren't actually looking to borrow for capital schemes in the near future. So obviously the hope is that the global situation will settle. And the financial monitoring reports going forward will pick up service-specific impacts such as fuel price fluctuations if significant. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jess. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much for that short update. I was interested because it's not, there's a bit more to it than just that, because there's we have a lot of actual developments underway, all of which, some of which are revolving loans coming down to us. There's some which obviously result in having us investing as well in things. And it concerns me that at the moment, although the market's fairly stable, we're talking about the long term, the next 2 years. There's potentially a longer term impact on the market rates going up or changes, inflation not coming down so much, and certainly not the Bank of England reducing rates. Plus, of course, there's also the impact on ordinary people of the increased cost of living. I've said petrol prices, but it's more than just that. There's obviously potentially a case where more people might default on rates because they're running out of money. There's potential for the lack of spend inside the towns, so lack of parking revenue because they can't afford to use their cars and so on. What I'm interested in is, do we have a sort of plan B? So if it's the market, if there's a sudden shift against us, what are the alternatives we have got? To dip into reserves, or is it to going? Essentially, what are hedging options?
Do you wish to answer that? Yes. Oh, Adrian.
I'll take that. So, I mean, some of these things will have shorter impacts, some longer impacts, and like the capital schemes we mentioned, it's borrowing at fixed rates, and there's no immediate borrowing due to take place in the near future. But with all these things, it's a case of balancing off your expenditure and income, isn't it? Like it is, if you expect income to go down significantly, and here is significant. Sevenoaks probably isn't always hit as hard as some other areas might be in these sort of situations. Services can be changed, as demands change in services, but you can also cut back services. We do have the fortuitous position that we can borrow reserves in the short term if we need to as well. So they're the main options. It depends which services are key to continue as well, doesn't it? But it's the scale of any impact, and it has to be a big impact to make a real difference. And on general services, it doesn't generally hit massively in the short term.
Thank you.
One last point, then, just to follow up on that, is that, for example, one of the developments we're talking about here, we're talking about developers coming, whether it's what we've been talking about earlier on with the Buckhurst Hill, or whether it's going to be housing development coming from the local plan. There's probability is that all developers are going to have higher costs in terms of their transportation, difficulty getting hold of basically raw material because that's going to be under impact. There's going to be other impacts coming through. There's going to be higher water rates, even if there's any water there to to support the developments, and also sewage as well. So lots and lots of impacts.
Yes.
There's a big potential for developers to come back to us and say, we need more money, or we can't meet these, or we can't go forward. So again, it's a risk. Are we factoring those sort of risks into our estimates in terms of our plans, our work going forward? When we look at developments, it's like an extra level of risk assessment.
Come on, Councillor Morgan, those points are very well made, but we're not making any decisions on projects at this point in time. I think all of those aspects, I'm quite sure, will be taken into account by all members of the committee when it comes to our making decisions which will involve giving advice to Cabinet. So your points are very well made and will be borne in mind, I'm quite sure.
Oh, thank you much. I accept that. What I really want to say is I'd like to see that the reports, where they come to us, have put sort of factors in, like we have in bottom back about risk factors and so on. We've also taken a view, is there any potential impact here or no impact? Just a peace of mind that we have actually thought that thing through.
Chairman, this is horses for courses to a degree, it's not on certain reports. Every report is looked at in detail. Risks are considered in each report, as you see from some of the other reports today. So, all I can say is you take each report as it comes each time. You can't, it's not a one size fits all on these type of things, is it?
I'm quite sure we will take account of risk factors when we're assessing items at future meetings. Are there any other questions in relation? Oh, Councillor Thornton.
Thank you. I don't think it's a question, it's more of an observation. That is, I'm just looking at page 31 of our papers, and it's talking about our finance and trading situation. I'm just looking at the reasons that have been given. I'm going back to COVID time when we were all saying, oh, it's ridiculous how much waste we're getting at COVID and it's all going to settle down. We are using this unexpectedly higher levels of waste argument rather consistently now. I think it was a surprise at COVID time and when we came out of COVID, but actually this is it. People have changed their habits. They're all getting their stuff from Amazon now. They're all throwing their cardboards into their general waste. So it's really a case of sort of going forward budgeting wise. We can't say it's exceptional amounts of waste anymore. This is it. This is us going forward. We need to look at reducing it again, but this is the new norms and we should be budgeting for it accordingly. It's very clear it's not going to come back down again. And just particularly picking up on that, so looking at the fact that our bulky waste collection income exceeding budget is only small, but I think we had an issue with bulky waste. They weren't doing it for a long period of time. So can we make sure these income generation services are actually out there and being fully costed, being supported, and not the first one to be stood down? Am I getting laughed at?
We offered you last opportunity to vote.
Yeah, well, no, I'm picking up, but it's my first time on this committee here, so I'm actually looking in the individual lines now, and with a little bit more openness to it. So it's just a case of making sure that that one is still being promoted as much as we can do, and also the green waste, another one we can charge for. Agency costs required to collect higher quantities of garden waste throughout the summer months. No brainer, surely. If it's summer months. So it just sort of looking at the way that we pitch these things. I mean, surely these aren't surprises anymore.
Thank you, Councillor Thornton. Do you wish to? Yeah. Okay.
So I think a lot of that is one of the reasons we're changing the waste collection service this year. Is the large chunk of it. Bulky waste is still continuing. Charles bulky waste system continues to operate. So yeah.
And get them to use that rather than fly tipping. It would be even better.
At previous meetings, Councillor Thornton, we have agreed that rather than discussing these levels of detail here at FIAC, we've asked for the finance to raise these issues with the relevant officers and with through the Cleaner and Greener Committee, and I think that's actually what we're engaged in doing. But thank you for highlighting the issues. Any other questions? If not, we are asked to note the report and forward any comments to Cabinet. I think the only comment that we wish to forward to Cabinet is to note the turmoil in the economy at the moment, or the potential turmoil in the economy, and to ensure that Cabinet is aware of this when they're looking at the financial position of the council. So if we can include that in our comments. Having said that, are we happy to note the report? All those in favour? Thank you. That report is duly noted. Thank you very much indeed. Item 7. Financial performance indicators 25-26 to the end of January. Over to you again, Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. So this report presents our key internally set performance indicators that relate to the financial aspects of the council and are those also reported to Scrutiny Committee. They present the year-to-date position, a snapshot as at the end of January 2026. Performance indicators are set out in Appendix A. There is one indicator I would highlight to members which relates to housing benefit and the average number of days to process a change in circumstances. This indicator is currently red, meaning it's more than 10% below target. So the commentary on that is performance for change of circumstances has improved since October and has remained at 9 days for the past 2 months against a target of 8 days. Work is ongoing to review and improve processes to help achieve the target. However, meeting the target remains challenging as a significant proportion of this work is generated by DWP interventions. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions or comments? Councillor Maskell.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to the housing benefit, that has been a considerable problem for quite a few years now, and we've never ever reached the target. However, I'm very pleased to hear that that target is getting closer, but still a reasonable way off. And I wonder whether it might be an idea, might be important to actually maybe change the target to something that is something that we can really achieve. It's still stretching, but will be something that officers can feel they can meet in due course, and then we see where we go on from there, and then maybe raise it appropriately in the future. But I continually not meeting a target which is not accessible, it strikes me as not being a very good way to operate, and that's not the purpose of target setting. The purpose of target setting is to enable people to have a target that they can reach and then work towards it.
Thank you, Councillor Maskell. That sounds very sensible, I might say. Yes, do you want to comment on that?
If I may, Chair, I actually, following a similar comment that was made, had a conversation with the head of service for this area. We are, it's at 9 days, the target is 8, so it's 10% by nature of the fact that it's 1 out on less than 10. So it's a little bit harsh in terms of it being read, I think. But he's highlighted that although it is a challenging target, he feels with the changes that have been made, he feels it is achievable and he wouldn't want to increase the number of days. And there's another performance indicator within this set that relates to new claims, and that again has had improvements and is currently green. So I think it would be a good idea to keep a watching brief on it, but the cumulative effect year to date shows it as slightly worse than the actual position over the last couple of months. So,
Councillor Maskell.
That is excellent news, and I'm very pleased that we've come to an appropriate conclusion, and I'm very pleased that the officers want to keep on trying to achieve that goal. Very pleased indeed. So thank you for that. Yes.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Malone.
Slightly tangential. I'm just thinking about the other areas of the council's activities and interested in the targets that apply there. So I wonder if it would be possible to request a full list of targets that all the different advisory committees see. I only sit on this one and improvement and innovation, but I'd be interested to see what other targets other advisory committees are looking at and monitoring.
I mean, that's a very interesting question, Councillor Malone. Here in FIAC, we did used to keep tabs on a larger list of performance monitoring issues.
Can I come in, Chair? I think the best way of getting those is at scrutiny committee. Each meeting, one of the portfolio holders attends, and at that meeting, all the performance indicators for that portfolio holder are presented at each scrutiny committee. They have been in all recent or over time at recent scrutiny committees.
Thank you. So I don't think we'll ask for a more comprehensive list to be presented to FIAC. I don't think that will be helpful. We're trying to keep tabs on what we think are the main ones that will affect the ability of the council to manage its finances effectively and efficiently.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't suggesting that FIAC should check that all the other committees are doing what they should do. Just out of interest, I was hoping to get sight of them, and if scrutiny is the place to go to, I'll speak to scrutiny about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, then we are asked to note the report. All those in favour of noting the report? Duly noted. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Jess, for that. Agenda item 8, carry forward requests. This is something we come to every year at this time of year, an accounting necessity. This is you again, Jess.
it is, yes. Thank you, Chair. So this report sets out the carry forward requests received for the 25-26 financial year. Due to the required timescales, it is necessary to obtain these requests ahead of the final position for the year being known. Therefore, all requests are on the basis of being up to a maximum amount. Revenue requests totalling £470,600 are set out in Appendix A. It should be noted that approval of these carry forwards will not worsen the year-end forecast as reported in item 6, as they all relate to specific work or work streams that have been delayed. There was initially a single capital carry forward request for £1,039,000 relating to the Better Care Fund, also known as Disabled Facilities Grant. This externally funded expenditure is largely committed but hasn't been completed in the year. And if we didn't carry this one forward, it would have to be returned. In addition, the amended papers also include a request relating to the Vehicle Replacement Fund, which is to carry forward the remaining £68,000 to put towards an additional vehicle. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Yes. This is a topic that we discussed in considerable detail this time last year, discussing the underlying reasons why we have carry forward requests one year to another. So I think we don't need to go into the general principle of this, but Councillor Stretfield, you have a question.
Thank you, Chair. And it's particularly in regard to the Better Care Fund, because it is a point rather than a question, but the size of that number should be of concern to the council, not only just to this committee, because there are a large number of people who need that money spent in order to keep them in their homes and out of care homes and out of hospital. And the fact that even if it is committed but delayed, that makes the risk to those residents greater than if we had got the spending done and in place. So just would like to ask what measures are being taken, not necessarily from a financial point of view, but from maybe this is better for another committee, in order to get that money spent in the right time in order to help prevent people going into care and into hospital.
I mean, that's a very reasonable question, Councillor Stretfield. Councillor Maskell, you want to come in here?
I think Jess might be better to start off with, and then I'll come in after that.
Thank you, Councillor Maskell. Thank you, Chair. So this has increased, and it is it's traditionally there in the carry forward requests, and it is at a higher level than we would like. I know that there's a lot of work going on with officers to look at how we can address the delays. A large proportion of them do relate to West Kent housing and getting those projects through rather than individuals. But yeah, it unfortunately is just the case that that's the funding that we've got left unspent. As I say, the majority of it is committed, but we've not managed to get it out the door and spend it on those improvements. So,
over what timescale would you expect them?
I don't have that information to hand, but I would expect projects to progress. But obviously, every year we receive funding and top-ups.
During this coming financial year that we're now in?
Yes, I would expect that will be spent within the new financial year.
Thanks. Oh,
May I suggest that maybe more context is sent round to members of this committee on this item?
okay, that would be very helpful. Very helpful, Adrian. Councillor Maskell.
I think on that note, I'll refrain.
Okay. Councillor Stretfield again?
I was just going to suggest, in noting the item, that we suggest to Health and Housing that they take it as an item or in their advisory committee on their work plan.
I think we will certainly worth noting that the figure there for the Better Care Fund carry forward request is particularly high. Yes?
I know the portfolio holders here, but normally this Better Care Fund is discussed in Housing and Health Advisory and assessed and how that grant project moves forward. So I think that will be definitely something very easily administered.
I think then our role on FIAC is to ask Cabinet to refer the matter to the relevant advisory committee to investigate why the figure is so particularly at this point in time. Yep.
Just like to say, this is an annual discussion that goes forward and has been for many years.
Yes, yes, indeed, indeed. The recommendation before us is that that the recommendations to Cabinet be endorsed. The recommendations to Cabinet are that the revenue carry forward requests totaling up to 470,000 as set out in table 1 of the report be approved, subject to any amendments suggested by FIAC. And B, the capital carry forward requests totaling just over 1 million as set out in table 2. 1.1 million, I understand the revised figure is, of the report be approved, subject to any amendments suggested by FIAC. Well, I don't think we're actually suggesting any amendments to the amounts being carried forward, but I think we would like it to be noted make some comments to Cabinet that we find the capital carry forward request is particularly high, and we would like the matter to be discussed with, is it Housing Advisory Committee? Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That is agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Jeff. Agenda item 9, community asset transfer. Who's going to present this? Detlev, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. In accordance with the Council's disposal policy, which was approved by Council in April 2025, the Council invited expressions of interest and full business case applications for the transfer or disposal of certain assets. This report recommends the transfer subject to appropriate safeguards, including asset locks and overage provisions of 7 sites to respective parish and town councils. 3 sites are not recommended for transfer or disposal, as the assets are considered to be either operational, income producing, or strategic, or all of the above. The sites have undergone the necessary due diligence, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank the various applicants for the hard work in producing their applications. Several discussions did take place with the various applicants and who have submitted some very good bids, and those were looked at in further detail, and we had further discussions with some of the applicants as well. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you very much, Detlev. We got any comments or questions from members of the committee? They can be in general or relating to specific items in this list. Councillor Granville.
Thank you, Chair. As you know, I'm not normally on this committee, and this probably might not be the way that things are done, but looks as if we've got several different assets to discuss. Could we vote on them individually rather than as a group? Would that not be easier in terms of process?
In terms of process, we've found in the past that it's best to deal with these en bloc.
Okay.
And if there are any specific reasons for removing an item from that en bloc consideration, then we may do that. We have done that on occasion in the past, but basically we'll vote en bloc on them. But carry on.
I'd like to speak about the proposed and still proposed transfer of the Sevenoaks markets to Sevenoaks Town Council. The arguments for SDC retaining the market rights are described I don't really understand them. The case for transferring the market rights to Town Council is that Sevenoaks Town Council has successfully managed the Saturday and Wednesday markets since 2018. And we've been investing, or the Town Council has been investing in publicity and trader support and strengthening the trader customer confidence. I'm reading this out because I don't want to miss anything out, so excuse me if it sounds a bit stilted. Sevenoaks District Council's experience with remote operators didn't deliver the benefits of scale, which is what's proposed here, that the markets would join up and there would be benefits of scale. And I think that's been tried before. And I think the operator went bust, cost SDC a lot of money. So in the town council's hands, it's been working very well. Keeping the market control local reduces the risk of decisions being made outside of Sevenoaks, for example, by a future West Kent authority, and reflects the historic aim of keeping the market local, which it has been. Sevenoaks Town Council set out plans to improve the high street setting for the market through its town centre master plan. We haven't got anything comparable from the district council at the moment. And I need to ask a question actually that relates to that, but I'll do that at the end. Sevenoaks, and we've been integrating the market into the wider town, including a partnership with Blythe. And it's and we can extend the activity further, including development east of the high street if necessary. STC has taken a strategic view of market development, and we do a lot of publicity every week. There's huge footfall. The traders are very happy with the way Sevenoaks Town Council runs it, and would really like us to be in place for their future. I want to just ask about Sevenoaks District Council's stated investment plans for the former M&Co 96 High Street.
Well, can I just stop you?
Okay.
Where you've got to talking about the.
Okay, yes, sorry, I'm sorry. We
high
can
street
talk
market
about that
rights.
later. I just want to confirm that it remains funded for the market, because
Can I ask
we'll make it.
Detlev to comment on that? Why is the proposal that the asset transfer request? Why are you recommending that it be declined?
Officers are recommending that the community asset transfer is declined because we do consider it to be a strategic asset. The reason why we noted strategic asset, its strategic value in its geography. When one considers the various historic market rights that one has, particularly for a new authority coming into power, the ability to control the markets within a far larger geographic area is significant, and that could be a potential revenue generation opportunity for the new unitary authority. And it is on that basis that we believe it's a strategic asset, and that asset should remain and transfer over to the new unitary authority. We also recognized that with regard to the development, the proposed development at land east of the High Street, that we didn't want to enter into a situation that could potentially scupper future market potential associated with land east of the High Street. And as a result, we feel that it would be inappropriate to transfer the asset at this point in time. We recognize the work that has been undertaken by the Town Council in terms of maintaining the market and bringing that back up to speed. But at this particular point in time, we do believe it is a strategic asset that should be retained by the District Council for those two very key reasons.
Can you just clarify those? The first one was about the geographic context.
Yes.
But are we not talking here about market rights within Sevenoaks Town?
We're talking about market rights across the future geography of a new unitary authority. Market rights on particularly historic market rights are not easily created. They exist, they've been there for in many instances centuries, and they hold a particular value, and they hold a particular ability and right to trade within a particular area at the exception of any other market. And that's important to recognize. When you consider the geography of the new unitary authority being much wider and much greater than Sevenoaks District Council, if you were to consolidate all of the market rights that the other authorities might currently have and consolidate those under a new unitary authority, their ability to control markets within that area is much greater. and therefore the ability to generate revenue for the public purse is significant. And it's for that reason that we're recommending that it is considered a strategic asset that is retained by the district council and transferred over to the new unitary authority.
Are you saying that the new unitary authority, I would have thought that the new unitary authority will have wider aspiration looking at with market rights? I bother that if we're transferring market rights to the unitary authority, we're saying you need to get to grips with this issue.
I'm sure they have numerous priorities, but when you look at it from a commercial point of view, whether you've got retail units or market rights, the importance is to retain your position on those commercial assets as much as possible. These are potential assets that a new unitary authority could generate revenue from. And when you consider that they restrict trade from other organizations within their geography, it is something that you would want to try to retain from a commercial perspective.
Have we got any comments from members of the committee? Councillor Stretfield? Okay, Councillor Granville, quickly.
Thank you very much, Detlev. Thank you, Chair, for taking my comments. I just want to ask a question. I'd like to know why the markets are valued currently by you, Detlev, at £100,000, and that's on page 131, because the log market value on the land registry at 2023, 3 years ago, was £10,000. So that discrepancy of 90% or 10 times 1,000% might be overvaluing the markets as far as the district council is concerned. But the market rights historically belong to the town. They were bought by Sevenoaks Urban District Council, and they were given to the town, not to the district, and certainly not to the unitary. And the town has always owned the market rights. So the valuation to SDC of £100,000 is sort of quite fantastical, I imagine, is it not?
Can I ask Detlev, who actually operates the market rights?
The market rights are actually retained by the district council, and as Councillor Granville pointed out, they were actually purchased by the previous. Sorry, Councillor, I forgot the name of the urban, correct. They were previously owned by then, and they got transferred over under the local government organisation at the time to the district council. So they are actually owned by the district council.
Who actually operates them? Who manages?
The council grants a license to the town council to operate them. As Councillor Granville highlighted, there used to be a private sector operator who unfortunately did not deliver as effectively as the current town council is delivering. So you used to have it's operated by the town council under license by the district council.
Okay, I'm struggling to understand if it's being run successfully by the town council. Why do we not wish to just hand them the rights to manage the future?
As we highlight, this is an asset that we believe could hold greater potential when you take into account other market rights within a particular geography. That provides the new unitary authority with with an asset that could be quite significant in terms of controlling and managing markets throughout the new unitary authority's areas. And from that point of view, you have the ability to generate greater income for the new unitary authority. That's the reason that we're recommending it. We're not saying that the town council has not been managing it correctly. What we are recognizing is that there is a future potential over here that we may wish to, or you may wish to safeguard for the new unitary authority.
Any members of FIAC have a view on this issue? Councillor Thornton. Councillor Stretfield.
So I think I've got 2 or 3 points. The first one would be that whilst the assessment from officers is that this land, and there are 2 other bits, is of strategic value to this authority, I don't believe that it would be of strategic value to a unitary authority. And the reason I would say that is because the unitary authority will have very big statutory responsibilities, principally in education and adult social care. And they will not have a statutory responsibility for the running of markets. So their immediate response to a budget deficit, as it has been at Kent County Council this year, last year, is to dispose, not to transfer, dispose of those assets in order to be able to balance the budget. This year at Kent County Council, that is £25 million worth of assets that have been disposed of, lost to public benefit. One of them is the AEC. So what we are being faced here with is the opportunity to transfer from public ownership to maintain public ownership versus a huge threat of transferring to a future authority that has no statutory responsibility for the continuation of those services. And
okay. Thank you. Thank you.
So that's the first and most important point. The second and third points would be that we do need to establish some stuff on the stag as well, but I'll come to that later. I think because we've discussed separately.
Okay.
But I do want to come back onto stag and Hollybush at a later point.
Councillor Thornton.
Thank you, Chair. I've now lost the paragraph I was going to refer to, but basically that there is a paragraph that's repeated a couple of times here about the process that we have to go through on these particular applications. And having read through all these applications, I can see absolutely why the decisions have been come to as far as where we are. Regarding the markets themselves, 96 abuts it. Until we've got land east sorted, I'd be very uncomfortable about transferring anything, but I'm also keen to make sure that we're not putting anyone in a worse situation. The town council is managing it better than it has been managed in the past, but that doesn't automatically mean that we should therefore pass the rights over. But I do hear what Councillor Stretfield is saying as far as potential risk, and certainly decisions we make here now, we want to make sure that for the future of our communities that they do take hold of that, and they can't just be sold to the highest bidder. These are market rights, they are ancient market rights. I am surprised, though, that you haven't included the shambles as part of this debate as well, because they pretty much interlock with each other. And I've always thought the shambles make a wonderful little Saturday market. It's never been used to its full potential in my lifetime, in my opinion. So I'm surprised we haven't sort of thrown that in with it as well. So, I have no doubt the town has an opportunity there to really do something well with the shambles, and I'm pleased to them that it fell into the criteria where it will be transferred. Because I'm hoping to see a little bit of love into the shambles, because nobody's really loved it since the work that Lady Juliet Simpson did with the work, and that's going back to my childhood, I think. So that's a long time. That was really all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. I think you want to come in.
Yeah, as Councillor Thornton mentioned about the process that this all goes through, I think it's referring back to the disposals policy that was agreed by all members at council, and 2 of the elements of that: one, the strategic assets should be retained for the successful authority, and also income producing assets should be retained as well. I think it's worth reiterating those points. That's what the council signed up for, and it needs to have a consistent approach, as Councillor Thornton has mentioned.
It was also paragraph 35 I was talking about.
Thank you, Councillor Thornton. We're in danger of spending far too much time on one single item in this, but is that Councillor Ball back there? Yes.
To say my few words, I just wanted to say I noted with interest what Adrian was saying as well, but I'd just like to say as well, it's You know, there's a saying as well, if ifs and ands were pots and pans, there'd be no need for tinkers. You know, we're only speculating what the new unitary may or may not do. And to be quite honest, I don't think that should carry very much weight. You know, we know at the moment what KCC have been doing, but that doesn't mean to say the unitary are going to do anything that may want to alarm us and whatever. So I personally don't put very much weight by that argument. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maram Perry.
I have just one question. Why not give the town council the chance to make use of the financial opportunity rather than the unitary?
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Granville.
I just have to point out that this isn't the charter market, it's a manorial market, and the right to operate is tied to the land ownership. So it doesn't prevent any other markets from operating anywhere else in Sevenoaks. In fact, that's proven by the fact that we now have a market in Blythe as well, which is separate from the market rights that we're applying for today.
Thank you. Are there any visitors to the committee who wish to come in on this item? Oh, Councillor Stretfield.
Sorry, just on Councillor Ball's point, the point I'm trying to make is backed by evidence, and where you have a statutory responsibility, that statutory responsibility overrides the options that you would have with market rights. And so it's not a question of my opinion versus Councillor Ball's opinion and which one weight you give. The evidence is the statutory responsibility trumps those discretionary services, and markets are a discretionary service to that unitary. It is really that simple. The thing I think we need to get to the bottom of is where Grant Thornton gave some advice about whether we needed to get best value out of a disposal of an asset or whether we could transfer. And I know there's been several bits of correspondence about this, but we haven't yet seen the evidence. And I think that would be a crucial piece of evidence that whether best value relates to these transfers, because as soon as it doesn't, and there are examples from Eastleigh where a theatre has been transferred at over £2 million because best value doesn't apply, that we can make those transfers without having to get kind of disposals policy that has been talked about by officers involved. So we do need to see that advice from Grant Thornton and to work out whether it actually does apply to these items. Otherwise, we are in very grave danger of losing them because of the threat of those statutory services.
Okay, I'd like to just comment on that. I do not think it's appropriate for FIAC to seek to overturn a recommendation that is being made to our committee. If we disagree with it, then we can say we disagree with it, but it's not up to us to recommend to Cabinet something which is at odds.
Can we propose an amendment, Chair? Sorry.
Chairman, I think it's just the recommendation for this committee is that if you endorse, you can add comments in addition to that. Yeah, it's not an amendment because it's not a motion.
Yes,
it is
because we're not a decision-making committee. We merely make recommendations to Cabinet. It's up to Cabinet to take decisions. If we have views that we think should be taken into account by Cabinet, then I'm quite happy for us to add our comments to what we pass.
Just to clarify that, we're not allowed to amend the proposal, the recommendation to Cabinet.
Yeah, Chairman, as I said, the recommendation is that it be endorsed. You could say it be like Councillor Grint mentioned at the start. It could be that this committee didn't support X or Y. It could be that sort of thing. It's added comments to it. You're not formally agreeing to anything. You can make changes like that. Yeah.
But I propose that we amend so that the 3 town council items go into the transfer pot rather than the.
Can I just hold your horses for a moment? What we have done in the past in relation to these community asset transfers, some of which have been very controversial issues, we've asked for the items to be considered further with a further report to come back to FIAC at a future date so that the matter can be considered in more detail and in greater depth. I'm looking at you, Councillor Malone. We seem to have did that quite a lot in relation to some items in your ward. And so I would prefer that we adopt an approach like that, which says that we're not convinced of a particular recommendation that is coming up, and we would like it to be considered further and come back to FIAC for further consideration. Oh gosh, and I've got a lot of people. Councillor Malone.
Thank you, Chair. To Councillor Stretford's previous point, I think we have seen the guidance from Grant Thornton. I think they've been very clear, and I'm sort of paraphrasing from memory, so he'll excuse me if I get my language wrong this time. But I think they've been very clear in saying that during this time running up to local government reorganisation, they expect to see good governance applied and our regulations, our disposal policy, etc., applied, as it's documented. And the disposal policy says that we need to achieve best value unless there are clear social, economic, and environmental arguments to justify doing otherwise. Presumably, those arguments have been made by all the people who've made their submissions. I've read the papers here that sort of paraphrase what those submissions say. And in relation to a number of the assets that we've seen in previous tranches, the officers have made it clear that if there isn't a sufficiently robust argument to overcome the desire for the council to retain assets of value, whether that's sort of land value or ongoing economic cash generating value, then that application can't be supported. So I think we've had the guidance from Grant Thornton that enables us to assess these cases in front of us.
Thank you, Councillor Maskell.
Thank you, Chair. Just to help the committee, what we have in front of us is the disposals policy. We've the officers have used that policy in order to assess the merits of each of the applications. As a cabinet, we will be assessing those merits and that argument that is placed within that disposal recommendations. The committee here is identifying, some members are identifying within the context of this meeting some reasons why those recommendations may be not appropriate within disposal policy and why these assets are not suitable for transfer. I think what we will be doing will be identifying, using that information that's been brought forward into enabling the cabinet to make an assessment of the merits or otherwise of those disposals. I have no doubt, having read the documentation, that the assessment is as accurate as they can possibly make it and make the recommendation appropriately. And they do it from a perspective of being not aligned to any particular area. And they're looking both forward and backward and looking at the present circumstances at the same time. And I think, and they're having to, as I've said before, they're not only having to think about the district council, they're also having to think about the new unitary, whether the new unitary is going to be this organization that is going to destroy everything that we hold dear. I don't know. Probably not, because obviously we'll have the Liberal Democrats who'll be able to run that organization. And of course, everything will be absolutely fine and to keep everything. But we don't know. So it's hard for officers to go to that extent to identify that this new authority is not going to be suitable and not going to be fit for purpose. So that is the essence of where we are in terms of assessment. And I have been sitting here, and cabinet members have been sitting here assessing some of the comments and some of the evidence that's provided, and thank you for that. Well, but I think that puts it into a little bit of perspective. And
thank you very much, Councillor Maskell. It's certainly the case that the whole principles and the rules underlying how we're going to deal with these community asset transfers has been subject to considerable debate as in terms of the process that we're going through. And so it's taken a while to get to a set of principles that we are now happy with. And the implication is, having agreed the principles for these community asset transfers, the decisions should be made in accordance with the principles that we have agreed. And I feel highly confident in saying that Detlev and his team will have evaluated them absolutely properly in accordance with the principles that we laid down and agreed. Having said that, there can nevertheless be some anomalies. Councillor Granville, I don't wish to prolong the debate on this item. What is important from my point of view as chairman is that ideally we can get to a position that commands universal support from members of the committee.
I just wanted to. Sorry.
I'm going to just turn briefly, because I know that there are some members who wish to talk specifically about Hollybush Park. So I'm going to turn attention to Hollybush Park and any members here wishing to talk about it. Councillor Stretfield.
Thank you, Chairman. Two points. First, on Hollybush Park. Don't think we can have a situation where papers are presented where there is the threat of housing on an area, and then that being recorded for public consumption, and then being told separately that there's no actual threat of that housing. There either needs to be, these papers either need to be factually correct, or there needs to be a clarification.
Sorry, which paragraphs are you referring to there?
So in the transfer of Hollybush Park, there's a paragraph that says there's a potential use for residential housing. Sorry, I haven't got it to hand. I just noted. Sorry, page 118, I'm being told.
Okay.
Delivery of housing in sustainable locations. So I think we do need to get the kind of the terms of this right. And one of the things that I think is very important, I do want to respond to Councillor Maskell's point about whether it doesn't matter which political party runs the future council. It's all about whether you have statutory responsibility for services or you have discretionary responsibility for services. And as soon as, and it was the same under the Conservative administration in last county council as it is under the Reform administration, now they are selling the assets that are non-statutory. So whether that be Hollybush, if they get that, or the markets, whether they get that, that is how they are balancing the books currently because of the level of demand of those statutory services. And this is not a party political point. This is a realization of how the upper tier authorities' responsibilities come into the new unitary. And if we don't get a grip of that understanding across the district council, then we will lose these assets
So
in that process.
what are you recommending in relation to
So
Hollybush
from your previous comments, Chair. I think you would be happy if we were recommending to the Cabinet that they take account in deciding whether Hollybush Park should be kept by this council or transferred to the town council, that they take account of the likely responsibilities of the future unitary and protect the recreational facility that is Hollybush Park for the town and the wider population.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Perth.
Thank you. I want to talk about Hollybush Park, continuing about it. I'm speaking on behalf of the Hollybush Residents Association, which represents over 400 houses surrounding the Hollybush Recreation Ground. We've been in existence for the last 35 years, promoting the park, the development of the community, local resident visitors. We provided trees, benches and cycle racks. We don't consider these assets belonging to us, either ourselves or STC, belong to our community. So the Hollybush Residents Association will be happier with a local town council running the park because we feel we have more input. We'd have be closer, it wouldn't be some far off unitary authority, some distance away. Let's talk about the park currently generates a small income, but this is offset by running costs, resulting in a net deficit. This is not about pounds, shillings and pence. The key issue is the well-being of the community and the importance of maintaining open space for their enjoyment and well-being. I think it's optimistic to think the clubs who use Hollybush can afford to pay more rent to generate a greater income. And I have to say, we're shocked by the suggestion that some housing could be developed within the park, particularly as Hollybush Rec is allocated for retention as open space in the current and emerging local plan and a bit from the 2023 Sheila. It was purchased from the Seven Oaks Urban District Council in 1910 with a covenant. The land should not be used for any other purpose than a recreation ground or other public purposes. And look at page 118. Internal council reports have already identified Hollybush Park as a site where reallocation of uses and limited residential could unlock wider facilities. Now, where are these internal council reports? We've never seen them. Where are they? Furthermore, on the disposable process map, page 307, it talks about statutory public consultation for open spaces. So there's been no public consultation and it's an open space. So the Hollybush Residents Association would like the FIAC to consider, again, going back again. I don't think it's suitable for transfer and think again, but it might be better to stay with the town council. So they'd like to.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Councillor Ball.
Sorry, just a small thing. It came out the last time as well. As we've already said, clearly we don't know who the unitary is going to be or what they're going to do. But clearly, according to Councillor Stretfield, sorry, Councillor Stretfield, we know already they're going to give it away. We don't know this at all. We don't know that the new unitary is going to give away all the family silver. In fact, if they have any set, again, we don't even know who the unitary is going to be. But if the unitary is going to be what potential partners we think we're going to have, I think you've got a pretty good set of councils there who are generally solvent and who are not likely to sell the family silver. So I'm sorry, I still struggle to actually accept this argument that everything's going to get given away by the unitary. And I'm sorry, but I don't agree.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. We are not here to take decisions on behalf of the new unitary authority. We're here taking decisions in relation to Seven Oaks District Council. Councillor Thornton.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, my point was going to be we don't have a crystal ball. At the same time, we wish to future-proof. We have to work within the rules of engagement that we've been given, and it's very clear what rules we need to be looking at. And I think the office has done a very splendid job of going through all of these items very carefully as far as what they currently contribute and what they don't. We don't know what the there's still lots of question marks over unitaries. Are we going to give away the family jewels right now just in case because we're frightened? No, we're not. We're going to make sensible decisions based on criteria that's been laid out for us. That's what we've got in front of us. As far as I'm concerned, what's been proposed to be handed over is sensible. What's been proposed to be retained for now, from a strategic point of view, is sensible because, well, for all the reasons that are stated within the report for the individual ones, and for the one that we can't make the decision on at the moment because we don't have the full facts, the stag, that has been deferred. As far as I'm concerned, I'm more than happy to support what the proposal is at the moment.
Yeah.
whether we had a few points or notes or whatever, but I think actually the officers have done a good job. We're arguing over small fry here. Of course, the town council want to have these assets, but at the same time, we've got a job to do from a district point of view and looking at it from a strategic point of view and an income generating point of view. So I'll be supporting recommendation as it currently is.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thornton. I think that there isn't a proposal in front of us which says that these items, Hollybush Park, Market Rights and land at Bradwell Vale, there's not a proposal in front of us which says that those are going to be disposed of. The proposal is that they be retained yes, I was just confirming what you said, but some of the comments seem to have been implying that we're looking to dispose of those and make some money out of it, either us disposing of it or the Unitary Authority disposing of it. Well, it is absolutely not any part of our remit to second guess what the Unitary Authority might do about these assets. The question before us is whether we should be handing these assets over to the new Unitary Authority or passing them over to other local government bodies such as the town council. Gosh, we've got more comments coming. Councillor Stretfield, last one.
Yeah, very short one, Chairman. I'm not asking you to second guess. I'm asking you to look at the evidence of what the current Upper Tier Authority is doing with its non-strategic assets. And I'm also asking you to look at within the town itself, if this council had owned the AEC, would it have disposed of it, or transferred it, or would it have kept it? Because if it had kept it, then it would have gone the same way, because the Upper Tier Authority has already disposed of it. You can see the example in front of you. So I'm not asking for second guessing. I'm not asking for crystal balls. I'm asking you to look at the statutory responsibility of the new unitary and to work out whether the assets that are in front of us are in the discretionary pot or in the statutory pot. And that's all you have to do. You don't have to second guess. You don't have to crystal ball gaze. You don't have to know whose political party is controlling it. You just have to look at the evidence.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stretfield. I think I'd like to summarise. Oh, I'll take this, Councillor Shea, and that's the last comment I'll take, and then I'll try to summarise.
That's very kind, Chair. Thank you. I just wanted to draw a couple of points here that to start with, that these are assets which the Town Council has asked for under this process with LGR coming down the tracks at us, not because these are assets which the Town Council considers are of high commercial value or monetary value, but because they are hyper local assets which will not be in the line of priorities for the new unitary because of the issues that we've discussed here this evening. So when we are looking at their strategic nature, they're clearly listening to the discussion, the market is strategic in terms of its connection to the regeneration projects. That wouldn't stop the Town Council and future unitary working together on that strategic project, but it would allow a hyper local authority to be focused on making sure that market is good as it can be for residents of the town and beyond. And we know it draws people from a long distance. Similarly, Hollybush parks are not going to be the bread and butter of the new unitary. It is the bread and butter of most parish councils, and it's the only park and the only playground in the town that isn't managed by the Town Council. It's an anomaly in that sense. In terms of its strategic weight, yes, there is a depot there. The business case from the Town Council proposed a lease and a peppercorn rent back to the District Council, to the depot and to the successor body for as long as is needed. And we've already talked about the fact that it can't be built on for housing, as the paper suggests. We haven't talked about the Horsefield particularly, which is the third item, not recommended for transfer. But again, that is a hyper local asset currently occupied by a local charity for Riding for the Disabled, and is identified as future use for allotments in its future, should that ever not be required in the neighbourhood plan, which is an adopted planning document. So this isn't about saying hand us over all the major money making ventures that the District Council currently has. It's about saying let's rationalise ahead of LGR and make sure that these super local assets are managed in the right place as we go forward into this new new scenario. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shea. I think we can, I would like to summarise by saying that there has been strong support for the principles of our community asset transfer arrangements, whilst at the same time a number of councillors have raised specific concerns about certain items that are particularly the ones that have been listed for not being transferred as part of the community asset transfer process. And I think the appropriate way for us to deal with this as an advisory committee is to note that strong arguments have been put forward by district councillors as to why Hollybush Park and Market Rights in particular, yes, I'll just mention those two, as to why those should perhaps be considered for community asset transfer, which is different from the recommendation in front of us. And we would ask Cabinet to bear in mind the arguments which we have heard at FIAC this evening when Cabinet are considering this matter at a forthcoming, I don't know when you'll be considering it, but at a forthcoming Cabinet meeting, hope you will take account of the arguments being put forward by several committee members. That's what I would like us to agree as a committee. Can I have your show of hands to say whether you agree with that line? That line is approved, so that is what we'll make sure we get the minuting right, but we'll be asking Cabinet to look very closely at these items when it comes before you. Thank you. Thank you all very much for your contributions. Now, we haven't talked about the stag at all. And that's for good reason, because the stag, we're deferring a decision on the stag. So there's nothing really for us to consider here at FIAC this evening. That's the line I'm taking anyway. Right. Can we move on? That was item 9. Yes, Councillor Thorne.
Sorry, but just along the lines of what was raised in IAC earlier, and the fact that we are assuming that here, us sitting on FIAC, will have the opportunity to hear the full case for the stag at a future event before it goes to Cabinet. Looking for reassurances for that, please.
Answer yes. Answer yes, we will do. Councillor Stratfield.
Very short one on the stag. I think we do need to get the frequently asked questions that said that we didn't have to consider, well, weren't considering a commercial sale, and the papers that say we do have to consider a commercial sale need to be reconciled.
Yeah, I think this is why there are some outstanding issues to be resolved yet in relation to handle. Thank you all for your input. Let's move on. Let's move on, Councillor Shea. Let's move on to agenda item 10. Agenda item 10 is about the FIAC working group, which was looking at the proposals for developing a hotel at Bevan Place. And we had a meeting, the working group, well, specifically myself and Councillor Malone and Councillor Winterton held a Zoom meeting together with 2 members of Colliers, our hotel advisors, towards the end of February. And I have not produced any written minutes for that meeting. My intention was merely to give you a verbal update as to what happened at that meeting. It was very useful. I'm sure we'll ask Councillor Malone to tell me if he thinks I've omitted any important points. What our hotel advisors, Colliers, told us was that there, although there is the potential for a financially successful hotel development at Bevan Place, Colliers were clear that in their view, it would not be sufficiently attractive to a commercial hotel operator because it wouldn't produce the necessary internal rate of return that would meet their investment criteria. And that hotel operators are currently looking more at developments in major city locations rather than a location such as Swanley. And therefore, this is the reason why, even though it may be a financially viable proposal, nevertheless, it's difficult to get a hotel operator directly involved in the proposal. I think you were already aware of that, Councillor Hallwood, weren't you? The Colliers explored the reasons why this was in considerable detail, but the gist of it is really that there are certain elements of the proposals which are fairly well hammered down, particularly the costs of operating a hotel. Those seem to be fairly clear. But on the other hand, the initial development costs are by no means so we're unable to be quite so clear as to exactly what those development costs, initial development costs, are going to be. And we're also not clear what the eventual value of the site is going to be in either 10 or 20 years, which makes a crucial contribution to the overall financial viability of the proposition of a hotel development. Correct me if I've got anything wrong there, Councillor Malone, please. But so that there's uncertainty about the success of a project, but clearly the first stage is, if we're going to have a successful development, is to get a hotel operator in bed with us, to do the very best we can to make this in some sense, a joint development between ourselves and a hotel operator, despite the fact that the hotel operator might be somewhat reluctant to get involved because, as I say, it might not meet their financial return requirements. That's what we're reporting to FIAC this evening, is what happened at the working group. We didn't form any conclusions at the working group. We asked Colliers specifically whether they would recommend that we go ahead with this proposed hotel development. They declined to answer that question. They did say that if we are going to go ahead with it, then the structure that we're proposing is the structure that they would support, which was sort of a bit half-hearted support for the Bevan Place proposal. Would you like to add anything to that, Councillor Malone?
Only a couple of comments. I think it's a good summary. Our perspective is not the same as that of a financial investor. They are looking at the returns that they can generate, and that's it, just the returns. And if they see better returns elsewhere, then they'll deploy their finite capital elsewhere. That's what the advice is from Colliers. They see better financial opportunities elsewhere. Clearly, our perspective is a bit different because we have the opportunity to also take into account the social benefits, social and economic benefits to the community over and above the simple financial returns.
Yes, indeed. Yes, Colliers did make that point. But there aren't any decisions before us on Bevan Place this evening. But I came away from the meeting, I'm not sure if you did too, Councillor Malone, with a view that we should look to proceed with developing or identifying a hotel operator that we could potentially work with. And that will be a key step to seeing what degree of interest and what level of interest there actually is from an identified hotel operator. Councillor Morgan?
Just a small thought. When this first came up for discussion, there were alternatives which were dismissed for various reasons. So is it worthwhile going back and exploring some of those and see if again, rather than the hotel, one of the alternatives could come in? If we can't get an hotel operator, there's still a vacant space there. It's still a bit of an eyesore, I understand. So therefore, it needs to be sorted out. Maybe one of the alternatives might provide that solution.
Well,
I know it's going back over old ground, but it still
Yeah.
might be better.
I think it is recovering old ground. I mean, the working group did not address that issue of alternative possibilities, and the question of what uses might be made of the Bevan Place site has been discussed, and the conclusion coming through both FIAC and IAC was that if it's going to be used, it should be our first port of call should be to try to make a successful hotel development there. So the question is, how can we go about that most successfully? And on that front, the right direction appears to be to identify a hotel operator that we can actually work with successfully. Councillor Ball.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a small thing. I do agree entirely what you and Councillor Malone has said, and agree a little bit with Councillor Morgan as well. But as a former resident of Swanley as well, I do understand that there is only one existing hotel in Swanley, and they have a huge occupancy rate there. If I'm not mistaken, it's something in the region 96, 97%. And so I'd just be a little surprised if you couldn't find a hotel, but hopefully you can. Otherwise, I think, though, that as Councillor Morgan has said, we do need to look at alternatives, because the council bought that land, must be at least 10 years ago. A long time ago, it was Working Men's Club that was knocked down. So I really think we need to do something productive with that site for sure.
I would just like to mention that the other member of our working group was Councillor Waterton, who's is no longer a member of FIAC since the latest reorganisation. She's not a member of FIAC, is she? No, but she was a member of the working group, and her view, she was somewhat sceptical of the proposal on the grounds that she didn't think a hotel was the right fit for Swanley. That was her personal view. But I don't think we can really, there's no point in rehashing things any further. Well, Councillor Maskell.
I just want to say, and for those people who are relatively new to the council, this site has been explored in many different forms, and as to what to do with that site, and we are now up against a time issue in terms of local government reform as well. I think we need to progress down the route of the hotel, because that is the most likely development that this authority will be able to progress with, in the light of our experience, our expertise, and knowledge from previous developments that we've explored.
Thank you, Councillor Maskell. Councillor Perry.
Yeah, my question is, what steps has this committee taken to ensure that the concerns of the local representatives and the residents regarding the Swanley Hotel are fully addressed before moving forward with this proposal?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. The fact is that there has been considerable representation from councillors representing wards within Swanley that have been made to both FIAC and IAC in relation to these proposals. So I think that has been fully taken into account. Councillor Hallwood.
Yeah, if I can just interject just on that point, the local, all the Swanley representatives support the scheme, and the town council was also consulted, where again issued its support for the scheme. It was pleased to see development coming forward on this site. When, as we say, we've looked at other options. The council planning committee previously rejected one of the other options. There's alternatives that would not give the town centre that extra sort of regeneration boost. I don't want to go over the arguments of why it's overall a good thing, but as part of once we've secured and gone through the process of procuring a hotel operator, there would be then consultation at that point with local residents as how the scheme will look. That was factored into the programme, so that's at that point it would be included. But I think, you know, speaking to lots of residents about this as I have done, there's a lot of different views, but we still need to reconcile the fact that this is a site that council bought and needs to ensure that there is a financially viable scheme that pays for itself. We don't get millions of pounds of regeneration grants from the government. That means we could do whatever we wanted on this site. It has to wash its face financially, which is what obviously Colliers and the scheme is proposing it will do.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Councillor Hallwood. Another point that is worth mentioning, and I hadn't mentioned so far, is that there are likely to be multiple opportunities for the District Council to pull the plug on the project at various stages, such as if planning approval is not obtained, or if a hotel operator that we seek to engage with, if they pull out of the project, then that would be a real opportunity or a real signal that we should perhaps be pulling out of the project ourselves. So there'll be opportunities to pull the plug, as it were, in future. Let's move on. Let's move on. There wasn't anything. Oh, yes, we will note the meeting of the working group. Yes, that's what we will do. Thank you. All those in agreement? Thank you. We will duly noted. Item 11, land east of Sevenoaks High Street. Procurement update, and I'm sure we'll rattle through this in no time. Who's going to take us through this? Detlev, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just give a brief introduction and then hand over to Andrew. I'd just like to make members aware that members will need to note that the detail of tonight's report is marked as confidential. This is because the Council is currently responding to questions raised by one of the other bidders. While those questions are being addressed, our legal advisors have asked us not to progress with the formal procurement award. This means that the report is not being presented for decision at this moment, but that the information should not yet be shared with the public or others. More importantly, however, members are also asked not to discuss the nature of the questions being raised by the other bidder or that process. There is only limited information which officers could be able to give at this moment in time, whether or not in open session. Officers are alert to the need not to prejudice the correspondence and discussions which have been taking place between the parties. However, even while those conversations are taking place, we would still like to provide this report to members to show the progress which has been made on the project. With your permission, I'll hand over to Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. The report before members tonight is a follow-up report to the one that was presented back in February regarding the land east of the High Street project. The report in February provided an update on the procurement process undertaken to select a preferred development partner and highlighted that all final tenders, including the preferred tenderer, identified a funding gap, and various funding solutions were available to be explored further to address the funding gap and enable viability and affordability of the project. The report presented in February advised that a subsequent report will be presented to the relevant advisory committees, Cabinet and Council in April, providing an update on the work undertaken with the preferred tenderer to address the funding gap under a non-contractual preferred tender letter and seek approval to enter into a development agreement. This report has been drafted and provides an update on the work undertaken during the preferred tenderer stage to address the funding gap. The report and its appendices is appended to this report as appendices A to G. However, at the time of writing this report, an informal procurement inquiry has been received by one of the unsuccessful bidders, raising queries in relation to their assessment summary and scores. This isn't unusual and is quite a normal process in procurements of this nature. There is continued ongoing correspondence between the Council and the unsuccessful bidder at this point in time, Due to this, the council is not in a position at this time to seek approval to enter into contract with the third tenderer, but we wanted to keep members abreast of the situation and the work that has been carried out during the preferred tenderer stage to address the funding gap. For this report, members are therefore just being asked to note the current position, including the potential implications for the programme, and at a further report seeking approval to enter into a development agreement will be brought forward in due course, subject to the satisfactory resolution of the outstanding procurement matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. We've got a huge amount of gold papers before us, and I don't know whether members will wish to refer to those gold papers. Our traditional position here in FIAC has been, as far as possible, not to refer to detailed information in the gold papers. So I hope we can stick by that. But if any member wishes to refer to any matters in the gold papers, please let me know in advance before raising them so that we can close the meeting to visitors. Councillor Thornton.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to make the point that apart from yourself and Councillor Abraham, I think everybody else in this committee has already been through this in a lot of detail already, including having the ability to talk about the gold papers. You haven't, oh, sorry. I'm brand new. You're brand new as well for this one. Apologies, for some reason I thought you were in the last meeting as well. So there's, and Councillor Ball, and I'm sure that they've probably got some specific questions as well. But I'm hoping that perhaps we can just not have to stray into gold papers this time unless there's particular comments from that side. Obviously, I'm not predetermining anybody's opinion, but I'm just bearing in mind the hour that I'm keen that we don't repeat ourselves again. But I would still like, because I had quite a FIAC-y question in IAC, and that was regarding potential loss of income, which I think the portfolio holder has taken away with him to address separately after the meeting. So that keeps me happy. But I don't have anything more to add than what I said at IAC, so I'm going to be quiet, I hope now.
Thank you, Councillor Thornton. Any other, Councillor Stretfield?
It was just one question about the risk register, which is in the white papers, and how far the compound risk of each individual risk has been added together in order to establish the overall risk to the project, particularly for FIAC, the financial risks, some of which Councillor Morgan was talking about earlier in the broadest possible context, but within the project. And I don't know whether that will stray into gold papers in the answer or not, but that's the question is about compound risk, particularly with regard to the finances.
I think it's worth noting that there are a lot of potential risks in a project of this magnitude, and the possibility of risks compounding is something that we must ensure that our property team take fully into account in any advice that they give to us. I'm sure they will do. Anybody else? Councillor Granville.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Thornton. We've exercised quite a lot of discussion this evening already. I don't think there's any point. I don't know whether between committees we ought to do the same thing over again, or whether what we did at what we spoke about at I&I stands for this committee as well. I obviously at the previous committee had a list of questions which we looked at before in closed session, as well as when the session was open. And of course, I'm still looking forward to replies from the department that I've sent it to. And I'm assuming that I can get the replies after the meeting, and that they will be in the minutes as appropriate. Is that all right? In which case, I won't raise any issues.
Yes, yeah, I'd like to make a comment, which is that one of the developments since we last met has been looking at the funding gap and measures which might be taken to eliminate the funding gap. And I just wanted to say, from the point of view of FIAC, this is a type of issue that we have looked at in the past, maybe not specifically in these terms, but we have recognized always in FIAC that there are financial considerations in looking at major projects, and there are non-financial issues. And the implication for how we should look at the funding gap here is that we should take note of the possible ways of meeting the funding gap, but we might be short-sighted if we said it is essential that the funding gap is eliminated. Instead, we should say, what are the things, what are the steps that we would have to take in order to eliminate the funding gap? And are they worth the cost? I'll just leave it like that, but any people might like to elaborate further. Councillor Maskell.
I just wanted to say from the previous meeting, and just to reiterate that obviously this will be further examined by FIAC in due course. So we're not at a stage where the committee will be ignored and they will have the opportunity of exploring these issues again.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maskell. I just don't want it to be assumed that FIAC will say it's essential that we eliminate the funding gap. The question always is, we can eliminate it, but at what cost of what alternatives do you have to make in terms of operational changes if you're going to eliminate it? And those need to be weighed up one against the other. It should not be assumed that FIAC will automatically look to eliminate the funding gap just because we're a finance committee. Councillor Morgan.
Yes, I think we could wrap this one up. I think the point is, I think that one of the issues here is the fact that it's being covered in two separate committees, and really the actual majority of this work was covered in the IAC, and I think that the funding gap or any whatever, it all should be rolled into one. We should just say either IAC or FIAC deals with as an entirety, because the thing is, otherwise we are in a danger of repeating ourselves and going over and over things again, and it really will, the decisions you're making about a funding gap may impact on things that will then be in IAC. So I think it just makes more sense to try and keep this into one committee. Doesn't matter which one it is, because basically we've got the same papers being presented to us and deal with that way.
I think, Councillor Morgan, that we will leave it up to officers to advise us how best to handle the programming of these issues and the way we take them forward through committees. I certainly wouldn't want to get involved in a decision of that nature. Councillor Maskell.
I'm just like to say that there has been criticism previously that only one committee looks at the information, and it's not looked at by other committees. So I think what we've tried to do is to ensure that that these matters are looked at by the appropriate committees in the appropriate detail required in response to such criticism.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maskell. Are there any, does any other member of the committee, or indeed member not on the committee, wish to come in with any comments? As if not, then I'm going to turn to the recommendation before us. The recommendation is to receive and note the report. All those in favour? Whoa, that is duly noted.
May I ask what, without wishing to provoke a rude reply, what should we do with our yellow pages? Because we will be getting a different yellow pages report, or should we retain this one? Because it's a lot of paper, that's all.
We can leave those here. Yes, they will be disposed of. Yes. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We have another item, which is the forward work plan.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so for the meeting in the summer, I think it's June, got the financial monitoring draft outturn for the 25-26 year, performance indicators up to the end of March, and the annual report on procurement. That's what's there at the moment. In autumn, we go through the start of the budget cycle again. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And oh, Councillor Malone. Oh, you're in favour of the work plan?
I was just going to say Land East has surely got to come back. But that might be an extraordinary.
I think that's on the work. That'll be on the work plan when it comes back. Obviously, remains to be seen. This.
Thank you all. Thank you very much indeed for coming this evening. Have a safe journey home.